Does it ever feel like everyone's got more going than you do?
Oops.
That everyone is smart?
So you're Al Myers' kid?
Yes, I am.
You look pretty stupid to me.
Thank you.
You say the best skier in town just ran off with your girlfriend? Even your younger brother does better than you do? And that nobody even cares?
Seth broke up with me.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, you might be right. But remember one thing.
I haven't even been to New York City.
Nobody was ever better off dead.
The truth is, I can outski you any day of the week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you want a race? I'll take you on any day, sucker.
Go that way, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
All you need is guts.
All right! Now turn!
I'm gonna race, I'm gonna lose, and I'm gonna die, in that order.
Go!
And you'll never doubt yourself again.
He's skiing on one ski!
Better off dead.
And that's a real shame when folks be throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that.
An abnormal look at a normal teenager.
Well, it's officially the holiday season here at Recon Cinema Studios. Welcome back to another episode of Recon Cinemation. I'm John Diner.
I'm David Munchak.
And I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we got a real good one here today. I'm very excited about this one. But before we get into it, let's talk about the holiday seasons here. We're past Hanukkah and we're headed straight to Christmas. So, David, what is happening around the studio lot, Recon Cinema studio lot, this Christmas? It's always one of your favorite times, and you're pretty busy.
Yeah, we're keeping up the inflatable menorahs all month long. You know, I might be over, but it's still here in spirit for me. Let's keep it going. Let's enjoy it. The whole month this is a party. So
we keep Hanukkah going like 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, we really stretch the metaphor of the story.
Yeah,
like it's huge. We keep it going.
Take it down in September.
Yeah, most of the spider claws robots are up and running. So web slinging through the lot, delivering presents.
Perfect.
Yeah,
wasn't there an actual Marvel like? I remember seeing ads with Spider-Man and Santa costumes. That was a thing.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe that's where I got the idea. I don't know. I thought I was an original.
Well, we leased the rights from Marvel, so we're good with that.
Yeah. And then we got the all the manger farm animals are now running around the lot. So we got your sheep and some goats, some donkeys.
They escape the nativity, or are they just?
Well, we gather them up every night for the live nativity that we do. We have about 7 different live nativities around the lot, as you know. So no one
has been a lot of action for sure. I can't even keep up with it all. Like a little overwhelmed walking through the lot.
It's a lot of animals. So and barn mice, kitty cats.
Maybe that's the smell in my office. Some of those farm animals.
I don't know. It's getting a little wild at Recon Cinema Studios for sure.
Yeah. So we keep up the spirit of it. So let's keep going.
We got the holiday music playing 24/7, like
extremely loud.
Darlene Love and the Ronettes.
That's year round.
Yeah.
I mean, there's never not a good time for holiday music.
Yeah, absolutely. But we are talking about Christmas films right now, holiday films. And last week we talked about Lethal Weapon, which is on the lesser end of the Christmas movie spectrum.
Yep.
Let's just be real. We're being super loose about our interpretation about what Christmas movies or holiday movies are. That's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
We've always, if you look back in the history of the show, we've always been that way.
Yeah,
we covered Die Hard and we did a Christmas special back in year 1. We did Gremlins. We did what Edward Scissorhands was sort of our on the fence one last year, and then we did Scrooged. And now you can add Lethal Weapon to the borderline, movie that takes place at Christmas, not necessarily a Christmas movie. And I don't know, this one is kind of in that same category. Where would you say Better Off Dead falls in the Christmas spectrum?
I mean, it's definitely not one of the movies I think about immediately when when I think Christmas or holiday movies, but it's definitely set in the right time of year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's set at the time. Christmas occurs in the timeline of the movie.
Correct.
Yeah, there is some snow. There's snow.
Correct.
Snow.
So we're heading in that direction. You see what we're doing?
Yeah.
We're building up. We have we'll hint at it later what our big Christmas movies
The
gonna be
finale.
this year. We got to have a real Christmassy one, but it's all we're inching in that direction.
No arguments.
No.
Yeah.
No, this year it will not be an argument. It is where I think we're all on the same page. Almost couldn't be more Christmassy, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about Better Off Dead, one of John Cusack's early of the Cusack classic films. This is probably the first or maybe second. So, directed by Savage Steve Holland. I'm a huge fan of this movie. I've been looking forward to covering it here for a long time. What about you guys? When was the first time you saw Better Off Dead?
I saw it as a kid. That it ran on cable TV every weekend, constantly.
Wow.
It ran on WPIX 11. I think,
Did it
all the
really?
time.
Wow.
Oh my
I
God.
never saw it there.
I watched a lot of TV. It's I had a lot of exposure to this.
Hey, PIX was a great station.
Still is.
Still is.
I assume.
I don't know if it's. I'm not sure if it's PIX anymore.
I think it's a WB station now.
I definitely follow
Or
the PI.
CW.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. I definitely follow the WPIX Facebook, fan page where they put up like what aired on PIX on like certain days. The whole TV schedule. It's really
Historic.
very nostalgic. Yeah. Like they do stuff from the 60s all the way through. Like I think they go into like the early 90s, and then it would have switched to WB.
Huh. Interesting.
Anyway, but go ahead, David.
I watched it a lot.
Didn't have that channel where I grew up.
No. No, so yeah, saw it on TV a lot. That's it. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I feel like I kind of missed this altogether on TV myself. The first, actually, I saw One Crazy Summer first, and I saw that on HBO at my neighbor's house for sure, late night view, and loved that one. But I don't think I really got introduced to this until maybe middle school, could have been even high school. Me and my buddy Andy loved this movie, but I think that we weren't really introduced to it until probably 8th grade, maybe 9th grade. But once we were, steady rotation.
Now, how did you see it when you first saw it? Was it a VHS? Was it a rental? Was it on?
Yeah, it would have been VHS. I'm almost positive. I don't know for certain, but I would assume it's VHS.
It wasn't Laserdisc?
Nope. Unlike you, John, I did not have.
You had the Laserdisc of this?
No, I did not.
Laserdisc player.
All right, cool. Yeah, Brent, kind of mirrors yours a little bit. I remember seeing the commercials and the trailers for this movie on, probably whatever on PIX or some station as a kid, seeing when it was coming out in theaters. I remember the part of the trailer of like really centered around him committing suicide. Like that was the promos, like that was what they were really pushing. Which watching it now, like, I mean, it's definitely a plot point, but it feels. That's not like the plot point I think of when I think about the movie.
I'd kind of forgotten all about that theme throughout. And obviously when you do watch it, it's steady and there and impossible to miss, but it's definitely not what I mean, it'd been a long time since I'd seen it. It's been certainly, 10, 15, 20 years maybe since I watched it last. So, I have certain memories here and there, but yeah, the suicide was not a big thing that stuck out.
Well, the film title and pushes you toward it, but yeah, you don't like, you look back on this like they're just a couple of gags, versus like really heavy things. So it's the dark humor just of those specific things are there, and then it's suddenly not even an issue like halfway through the movie. So then it's it's a little fascinating look at the theme of this for an angsty teen having a hard time, sort of living out these like dark fantasies and almost doing things, and it's all played for comedy. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. We'll touch on some of the themes of the movie later, and especially about its view on teen suicide. But I didn't see it. I didn't see it for years after that. When I worked at Suncoast, I remember there was a couple of customers who came in very regularly, always looking for Better Off Dead, and we had to back order it for them. It was $100, and it was like there was no time estimate of when it was going to come. It was like you're ordering this like from the distributor directly.
You have to make that copy for you.
They had to make the cardboard of the VHS cover.
Savage Steve Holland is just out there like printing copies, mailing them off.
And I remember when it finally came in, like months later, we could not reach the person who had ordered it. And they had just stopped coming in. I don't know if they moved away or something. And it just sat there, this $100. It was in a very different box. Like it was all like these weird color, like stripes, and it was a I don't know, not what eventually came out. But then it came out like 4 months later. It came out $9.99, and the $10 video. It was the 20th Century Fox would do those $10 videos. Like Point Break was one of them, and they had a whole bunch of them. But it came out there. I picked that up. And then when it came out on DVD in like 2001 or 2, I was like, I was still in Santa Fe, and I was obsessed. I'm like, I had to get it the minute it came out, and it was nowhere in Santa Fe. Nobody had it. Best Buy didn't have it. Hastings didn't have it. Whoever else. Finally, we went to Borders, and my wife Lindsay pushed me into actually getting somebody to go in the back and look through the boxes and see if it was there, and they had one copy.
Wow.
And that was the DVD that I own to this day.
I was going to ask, is that still the one? Because it's damn hard still to find and figure out how to watch it.
I don't know how long it was in print. Maybe the DVD is still in print, but it's never streaming. Whatever the rights issues are, it's never been an easy movie except for brief periods of time to find.
Right.
It's almost always you had to seek it and find it, and it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah, you can't stream it anywhere. I mean, I had to buy a physical copy so that I could watch it for the show.
And now, don't you feel better that you own it in your collection?
I'm not upset that I have it as part of my collection for all the nostalgic reasons. I will say that this viewing, I had a different feeling walking away from it than days past.
Are we gonna reverse Joe versus the volcano this?
I think we have things to talk about.
Yeah. So, all right, for maybe those who don't really remember it, David, can you do a quick plot summary? What's happening in this movie? What is Better Off Dead all about?
John Cusack's Lane is our central figure of this film, who essentially is dumped by his high school girlfriend. He's also in high school, and after it's set up very quickly that he was deeply into her, and then his loss and grief of losing her turns to comedic attempts at ending his own life as the only way out, while he lives in this bizarre world with his family, his little brother, his mom, his wacky neighbors, his rivals, his enemies, his inability to hold down a job. Lots of teen things going on through John Cusack's lane, and his directionlessness comes to a head when he meets the right person and maybe can turn things around. And no, there's more to life than that one special relationship in high school. Does that make sense?
So sold. I'm there. I just bought 2 tickets.
There you go.
What's happening in the teen movie world of 1985? This came out in the summer/fall of 85, which we'll get to that later. But what was happening was John Hughes films had started coming out, and obviously he's right at the forefront of the teen comedy, dramedy, the teen movie in general. Is how do you think this compares to a John Hughes movie?
It's much darker. I mean, the comedies, obviously, and I think that's probably what originally drew me to the movie and why I enjoyed it. Not that I didn't. I mean, I loved the John Hughes movies back in the day when they came out, but they're definitely, I think, meant to be more lighthearted, kind of more easily digestible or ingestible by kind of mass audiences. This one seems a little bit, I don't know, like it's rough around the edges. It's kind of one of those things where when you watch it, it feels like you're seeing something that not a lot of people are seeing. Like it instantly feels like you're kind of on the inside of like kind of an inside joke or inside, like, something that somebody else doesn't know. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of viewing experience, I feel like, when you walk away from it.
Yeah, it is a very different flavor from the John Hughes movies and the other, I mean, the other teen movies that were out there, like Karate Kid's out there. I mean, Back to the Future technically is a teen movie. Michael J. Fox may not have been a teen, but the character of Marty McFly is. And when you look at like how teens are being portrayed and what their situations are like, this movie is very much rooted in real life issues.
Yeah, it feels more real, feels more relatable in that way, even though the approach to telling the story is less grounded. I mean, it's
absurd.
Yeah, there's several absurd elements and a lot of cut scenes to 2D animation or even stop motion and things that weren't being used in that way heavily in like the romantic comedy genre at the time.
Yeah, and it's got an edginess, and I mean, it's certainly very different. It's very bizarre. It takes your standard, when you look at what the issues are and the themes, like they're pretty straightforward teen issues, right? But it takes a whole different spin on it and gets very bizarre and strange and surreal. It's just a different angle from what John Hughes. I mean, it's almost the same kind of movie. It's just a totally different angle. You could see Lane like existing in the world of The Breakfast Club, going to that high school.
I mean, I just want to say it's like the theater kids version of a John Hughes.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It's like, that's how I feel about it. I mean, and I say that I was a theater kid in high school and when I loved this movie, and it's just like, it just feels dramatic, but from a high school drama standpoint, and I don't know. It reminds me a lot of like hanging out with the theater kids in high school, like just some of the silliness and kind of getting caught up in certain things. And I don't know, that's just my kind of takeaway after having seen it so many times and not again for such a long time.
Well, like, yeah, John Hughes was trying to encapsulate feelings through, you know, very specific characters and all that. And this is capturing, like, even though there's absurdness, there's and bizarre, that's when you're a teenager, the world becomes very bizarre very quickly when you start to understand things with like a little more in depth. And it's like, you know, you have a certain understanding of the world as a child, and then as a teen where you're rocked with hormones and emotions, like things just start to make no sense and you just sort of have to live with it. And I think that's sort of what Holland is sort of always about. It's just sort of you have to navigate this world, and it gets weird and you can be weird. And yeah, I don't know. It's so there's a, like you said, it's similar in themes. It's like it's almost it's the same kind of story. It's just told in a different way. And this movie sets it up perfectly from the opening sequence where we see just how obsessed Lane is with his girlfriend. That the absurdity is starts with him as well. Right. So you got, all right, you're already like implanted in the world through him. He's not just the normal kid and everyone else is crazy. He's also as absurd as the rest of them, but we go on his journey alone.
Yeah, and that's, you're right, David. You see it immediately, and it in that first scene where you're tracking across his room, and you see his room is like littered with pictures of his girlfriend, which who doesn't do that?
And I mean, it's not even a bunch, it's the entire, I mean, it's hundreds of them. That's what's just so amazing about it, right?
And his wardrobe closet is all like,
yeah,
like she's on the hangers, right?
Yeah, like she's wearing his clothes.
Yeah,
it's just so strange. And we keep saying his girlfriend, but of course that was Amanda Weiss playing
Amanda Weiss, yeah,
playing Beth.
Yeah,
Beth. So
who we know from, you know, we'll talk about the cast later, but who we know from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So yeah,
one of the coolest little, I feel like one of those extra little Easter eggs in this movie that I liked was, you know, the scene where she comes up at the dance and the kid standing behind her is wearing a sweater that is very, very similar to Freddy Krueger's sweater.
Yeah, a little nod there.
Nod.
Yeah, almost every single scene in this movie has something like some kind of weird, bizarre twist. Some of it is part of the plot and some doesn't make any sense at all. Like there's a laundry list of them. There's the scene where he's in the cafeteria trying to hit on Chris Cummings, the cheerleader, the basketball cheerleader, and he's in line. They're in line at the cafeteria, and the guy behind him is standing super close to him. He's like right behind him, sunglasses on, holding a fork like a weapon.
Yeah, and like ready to stab.
Yeah, and there's no like reason that he's there. It's just one of those things, and you really see it when they walk away, like what the guy was doing, and it's just bizarre. And the movie is filled with it and all over the place, and some are very obvious and some are really subtle. So but it's you know, and each character has their own kind of insanity, like insane world that they live in that is normal to them, I guess, but then, or quote unquote normal, but to the viewer it's like, what are we watching here? It's crazy. Like the movie is very bizarre that way, and I think the more you see it, there's just more and more to see each time you watch it. So I can see, you know, that being said, you know, it does feel very much like a product of the 80s.
Yeah,
not that those issues don't speak to people today. I think some of those themes are going to always be there for teenagers, but you know, I think because it's so bizarre that I can see people not enjoying the movie now, because it's really like you're either going to like it or you're not going to like it.
Do you mean someone who's like never seen it before?
Yeah. For
like
a first time
eyes.
viewer, especially like if you're an 80s fan and maybe a Cusack fan, and this is your first time watching it, you might be into it. But if you're not, if you're just putting on a movie, you might need to be in a specific.
I don't know how well it translates over to like today's audiences. I mean, there's there's a number of different things that probably don't hold up very well just in general, but like also just kind of context and everything of the time. Like I just don't think. I would agree with you, John. I'm not sure that people would, like, new viewers would really get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a very like deep attachment with this movie. The first couple of times I saw it, I was in like a really like dark emotional place, and this movie helped kind of like bring me out of it. It just brought me, I don't know, just a sense of whimsy is not the right word, but it just kind of like snapped me out of it, and you shook me a little bit, and I could just kind of have fun with it. So for me personally, that's I'll always have a love for this movie. But anyway, let's talk about where it came from. And there's not a huge amount of information out there about this movie. It's it comes from the mind of Savage Steve Holland, who is now I believe he's a big director of like Disney kids shows.
Yeah, Disney, Nickelodeon. He does a lot of those. Like, what are some of them? Like Henry Danger, iCarly. Like, he was involved in some of those. I think he's doing. There's a new one.
Oh, you did Lizzie McGuire. Sure, yeah.
Oh, that show. That show. Small show.
Some of those. Oh man, yeah. Look at that.
He's had such a, that's really his main career. These first couple of movies that were not successful and have a cult following, even including One Crazy Summer, that really didn't work for him. But it's that whole phase of his career where he became the director for the kids shows in the later stages. That's where his real probably financial success came from. I don't know if creatively how much that does for him. I mean, he's an artist and had a vision, at least in the early part of his career, that I don't know if that's what's driving what he's doing today, but I'm happy to see he's still out there doing stuff.
Yeah, I think the bulk of his career, he's been relatively successful with those kind of young teen shows.
Yeah.
Well, and then early 90s, I was still watching Saturday morning cartoons, but a very curated thing of Saturday morning cartoons, which is not a thing that exists anymore. But Eek the Cat was a show on Fox.
Yep.
Bizarre and funny, and I loved it. I had never put it together that, like, I saw Savage Steve Holland's name on the credits of that all the time, but I had not put together that he had done One Crazy Summer and Better Off Dead, which I adored. So it and then it clicked, like the animated sequences from those movies, and then the animation style of that show, and the fact that like he kind of like he did the whammies on Press Your Luck, I think. Like,
yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, oh yeah, he was all over the 80s for me, and like and all that, and and just that one show, the early 90s. So big fan of Savage.
Yeah, that animation style. I mean, that's where he came from. He studied animation at Cal Arts, and that was his field, really. And that's a very specific animation look. So when you say that, Press Your Luck, of course, like that, I can see it right away. That's him for sure. And Eat the Cat was a great show.
Oh, one of the best. I adore that show.
I don't think I ever saw that.
It's really funny.
was that on the same era as The Tick?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was like, 1992. I'm watching Batman the Animated Series. I'm watching X-Men. I'm watching Eek the Cat. I'm watching The Tick. Yes, and like these are not the shows of the 80s, like that were a little more like action figure heavy and like, really for kids. This is for like 10 and up. Like,
it was aging. It was like the shows were aging with us as we got older. The shows got a little bit more dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't about like the Care Bears doing a bunch of stuff. It was, and Eek the Cat had a take on the Care Bears actually.
Oh my God,
they had the Squishy Bears.
we should pull those up. Let's get 6 random episodes of Eek the Cat and have a crew screening for the Recon Cinema Studios crew.
Sure,
the backlot folks.
We'll see if Savage can make his way over.
Yeah,
that'd be dope.
Well, and he got that name, like he always goes by to this day, Savage Steve Holland. Like that's his name. Yeah. He got that, I guess, from when he was a kid. He kicked a kid in the teeth in soccer, as one does. It can happen.
Accidents do happen.
They do.
Savage.
It was savage.
Kid savage.
Yeah,
he was so savage.
So, which doesn't really go along with like the rest of his career, but the name stuck. So,
right. So, Better Off Dead is his first movie, right?
Yeah, he had done some short films, one of which was seen by Henry Winkler.
It was the 11-year birthday
party. Yeah, 11-year-old birthday party, I think.
Yeah.
Which, Henry Winkler, after Happy Days, had really moved into producing and wasn't acting as much. He did here and there, but he thought, Savage Steve Holland had a lot of talent. He saw something in him and sort of mentored him a little bit. And he's the one who introduces him to John Cusack, who at the time this is the very beginning of his career. And he was not a name yet. He had made appearances in Class, 16 Candles, Grandview USA, and the Sure Thing was I think his first leading role, which was directed by Rob Reiner. So Cusack was a tough sell for the studios. So he wasn't, he wasn't a name. He wasn't who was up and coming at this time. Sean Penn, Tom Cruise was out there. I think Rob Lowe was like just starting. All that that whole Brat Pack and Brat Pack related group of actors. But Cusack was really like very much a secondary character, especially in 16 Candles.
Right. But I think that studios were starting to recognize, or they could see kind of the charm and charisma that he could add, especially to a character like Lane, right? So the casting, I mean, I don't know if there were others that were kind of up for the part as well, but I think because of Henry Winkler and his involvement early on, even though Winkler bowed out from producing it ultimately, because he had, clout, it kind of stuck, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's, to this day, that's how, it's all about the connections and getting people to where if somebody supports them and is behind them and has some name, value, that they can really help your career along. And so John Cusack should thank Henry Winkler and I guess John Hughes for his start. So amongst others, but
right.
Thanks, Fonzie.
Who could you guys have seen from this era in the mid 80s? Who could you see playing Lane Meyer? Is there anybody else that jumps out?
I mean, there's two names that jump out kind of to me. Matthew Broderick.
That's
right. Like is the easy one, but I also was thinking John Cryer.
Cryer, yeah.
He had been in a movie just the year before with Demi Moore called No Small Affair. And so like he didn't have quite the charm and charisma that, or, it definitely less kind of like that. dark humor edge than that John Cusack had. But he could have done a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Matthew Broderick's the easy one. That was the first thing that popped in my head, and that would have worked, I'm sure. But yeah, Cryer, interesting.
I like a Cryer, sure. Yeah.
What about we talked about him last August. What about Andrew McCarthy?
Oh, McCarthy'd be great in this
because he can ride that line of serious or kind of wacky, silly comedy that we saw on Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah. It'd be a good. His would be a good interpretation of this. I'd like to see. I would have watched that.
Some others, I mean, who was getting big at that time, Rob Lowe might have been. I don't know if at the time he could have handled the comedy as well. Later on, but back then, maybe not.
He was still taking himself pretty serious then. Like getting started, like he was the heartthrob kind of romantic hunk. To use a term that's used in this movie, hunk.
Yeah.
How about a Scott Baio? Maybe.
Scott Baio could have done it. Come on, Charles in Charge. Yeah.
Scott Baio's no good.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's been vetoed.
Yeah, he's out.
He's not allowed on the lot.
But I don't know, like Emilio Estevez, no, probably not.
Charlie Sheen.
I don't know. He did comedy great in Hot Shots, but this part of his career, this is like Red Dawn Charlie Sheen. I don't think so.
I mean, are we just naming all the guys that have like dark hair and kind of all look exactly the same? Tom Cruise, like,
yep.
Who's blonde? Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, I think Cusack's perfect though. Like he's just, I mean, as his, I mean, if you know, you watch his other movies and like just the sensibilities that you expect from him and his characters like really play super well, even as early as Better Off Dead. So I think he's great casting for the role. It's interesting because I guess he hated the movie.
Well, that comes later. That doesn't come until the release and ties in with One Crazy Summer, but which we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, he has so much charm. You know, the Cusack of today is obviously, I mean, he's much older and it's a very different kind of Cusack than the earlier part of his career. And the romantic comedy Cusack, he was so good at, I don't know, like he wasn't your traditional leading man. He wasn't a macho kind of like hunk guy. He was very, he looked like, I don't know, I felt like he looked very human. He looked like a regular guy.
Yeah.
And I'm always drawn to that and not like the movie star, you know, quality that, and he was able to ride that line of like that silly comedy, but sort of heartfelt emotions. This is much more into the silly comedy side of things, but underneath it, like he still, as an actor, has to be playing those notes of what is really going on with Lane Meyer. So I think he's perfect casting.
What if Hugh Jackman he's only 2 years younger than John Cusack. So what if we got Wolverine in here?
Well, there would have been some musicals, some songs and dance numbers.
He would have got into the whole animated, you know, Van Halen stuff.
There would have been a tap dance number with claws.
Yeah.
I
don't know I don't know if he was acting professionally back in '85. Maybe not. I
really don't remember seeing him until X-Men.
Yeah. I mean, he's Australian, right? He's probably hitting the Australian scene.
Yeah.
Back then. So we'd have to pluck him out of time.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait on old Hugh for till later on. He barely slides into the era of this podcast.
Absolutely.
Just barely.
But all right, so let's talk about the movie itself. So there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of, you know, we've already been talking about it. The the themes of the teen comedy, but let's talk about how this movie portrays it. So, you've got a lot of heavy issues, and like in another world, this movie would be very dark and very serious. And, what is it? What was the Netflix show? 13
Reasons Why?
Yeah.
It would be that. That's very dark and very serious.
Yeah. That's like the heaviest version of Better Off Dead. I mean,
yeah. Yep. Did you see it?
That's the
I don't even think you can compare the two, man. Like, I mean, other than the fact that they both, I mean, one is certainly about suicide, and this one certainly is driven by the theme of Lane trying to commit suicide for comedic scene. But man, 13 Reasons Why is intense, dude.
I actually have not seen it all the way through. I've seen like, I don't know, a couple of episodes and I stopped, but that was the subtitle. That was the tagline, was 13 Reasons Why, the heaviest version of Better Off Dead you could possibly imagine.
Better Off Dead 2.
But yeah, obviously teen suicide is a real issue. All of us have battled, those heavy feelings when you're growing up and you're going through a lot of changes. And when you start in the dating world and, your first love and a lot of times that just ends in a disaster because nobody knows how to act with each other yet.
High school's awkward, right? Like it's very emotionally driven. Your world is small. Everything seems larger than life. It's really easy to get caught up in those emotions thinking that, this is all it is. And, it's a miracle any of us got out.
It really is, like, because of how heavy, at least I'm just going to speak from my own situation. Like those feelings were so heavy and so constant. It is amazing that
man,
you get through it. It's hard if you don't have a support group, you don't have people to talk to. How do you do it? It's for me, it was like getting out of New York, getting away from everybody and creating space, meeting you, Brent, meeting a whole new group of people with open mentalities in a like new place was how I was able to like keep myself sane,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's just it, right? Once you're out of high school, you're at least afforded the opportunity to go off and experience more of life and realize that your world isn't just this small little section of where you are. I mean, it's everything is kind of at your fingertips. You can do whatever you want. You're going to meet so many different people. You're going to learn so many new different things. But there's a lot of tunnel vision and a lot of feeling the pressure of your current situation, when you're 15, 16, 17.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And your world is so, compared to what most people's worlds become later on, like your world is so narrow.
Right.
There's so much less you're actually dealing with it, that everything seems so much heavier, but you don't know that. You don't know that till later.
Nope.
And Lane is completely obsessed with Beth and is his whole life, and her rejection of him for Stalin, the like school bully who's like 40 years old, is just devastating for him, to the point where he is willing to attempt suicide. How many times? 4 times, I think, in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Something.
But
he's really bad at it, though.
He's well, and he changes his mind like at the last moment.
Yeah.
He's just on the brink, and it's like the thought is serious, but are you serious about the act? And obviously, he stops himself, but ends up like getting into these crazy situations anyway. But yeah, I don't know. There's obviously suicide is the big thing, but that is really only in the first half of the movie. Once he befriends Monique, played by Diane Franklin, who we've actually interacted with a few of these cast members on our social medias. Diane Franklin, Amanda Wyss, so that's cool. But and Diane Franklin, who we saw in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure last year.
That's right.
Once he befriends her, it's like his priorities shift and his thought. He's not like in love with her right away, but it at least is able to shake him out of the suicide and being obsessed with Beth and more about Stalin and the K-12 and that side of things. So.
Well, yeah, there's this there's this whole other thing of this rivalry with Stalin, who Beth starts sort of dating, but like not exactly, but they are. And so then, this Stalin is this alpha male that he has to confront. And one of the things Lane is kind of good at is skiing. And he tries to join the ski team, and Stalin kind of screws him out of it and all that. And then there's the challenge. Like, this is it. That they're going to figure it all out on the slopes. They're going to settle it on the slopes of the K-12. And Stalin isn't even really that bad of a guy. Like, really, he's not terrible.
Well,
like, he's kind of a jerk.
He's just kind of an idiot, but
yeah. Yeah, he's kind of, I mean, from what we see of him, he's basically the school bully. The school jock / bully.
He is definitely mean to Lane, right? Like, he does poke fun at him, and I forget the nickname he
Oscar Mayer
and all that. I mean, he's definitely, he's a bully. He's picking on him, but
I mean, it's pretty lame. Like,
exactly. It's a very lame bully.
Yeah.
We've seen worse in movies for sure, but yeah, I mean, he's just more annoying than anything else.
Really, yeah. Like, he's kind of a goof,
right?
As far as bullies go, like you said, we've seen much worse out there.
Well, he's just like super cliche, he's like a terrible singer playing guitar at the lunch table, and you're just like, come on, guy, like, you're just the worst.
Yeah,
like, you're such a pile of garbage.
Him singing with the guitar, like serenading Beth, is it's almost in the background, but it's like, if you listen to the words,
but it's terrible. It's so bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different plot points going on. That's the suicide, his obsession with Beth is one, his rivalry with Stalin is another, and then you've got this whole other storyline with Monique and her being a foreign exchange student and living with what's his name, Ricky across the street. Now, that's where we get into some kind of risque territory, because
I think it's even worse that the character's played by Dan Schneider, who in real life has was released from his work at Nickelodeon because of suspicious behavior. And I mean, it's just like, that part does not play or age well at all. And in this, it's like, I forget the term that I read a couple different times, but basically like sex slavery, for Monique. And it's just a weird, I mean, there's a couple things in the movie that are like this, but this is definitely by far the kind of the one that is kind of the most egregious. And you're like, man, that is just super whack.
Yeah. It's kind of gross. Like, cause she's a foreign exchange student. So Ricky's mother is just trying, she's trying to play it up. Like, she wants this French girl to be with her son Ricky, and she's his little angel. He's her little angel and all that. And he's just a creep, and he's a creepy dude. And it doesn't get into it. It's implied that they're much creepier than they are. Like, you don't see too much, but otherwise he just comes off as like a weirdo creep.
Yeah, but it's obvious that they
creep. And and it's like, well, she's there because she's there, then she's there for him. Like, right?
Like, right. And it's obvious that they're putting her in, like, they don't go into detail about like what all is happening in the house or anything,
Yeah.
But they're certainly monitoring who she's with and what her whereabouts are for at least up until, her and Lane really start to spend time together, but breaking through that kind of restraint, of them trying to just keep her for Ricky, it's super awkward and really kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't go into detail of like what's happening behind closed doors, but you can tell at a minimum that he's trying to force himself on her or force her to engage with him, which it seems like I always read it that she's been resistant to it, that she hasn't actually done it, but the pressure's on for sure.
Yeah, I kind of read it that way as well. I mean, if it's not that, then it's even more disturbing.
Darker. Yeah.
No, yeah. I think the idea was like they really want to convince her, like, Rick, you should be with
right.
Ricky. I never read any kind of implication that like they did something criminal.
But he is still like all over, anytime they're together, like he's like
putting his hands
on her, he's real handsy, and it's just real like
very inappropriate.
The ownership of her,
right?
And she's faking, she's pretending that she doesn't understand English at all, and we find out, towards the end that she does. She speaks it, she understands it.
She's smart. She's
great,
smart,
great French accent by Diane Franklin.
She did wonderful.
She's also a great mechanic.
Side hobby.
She's dope.
But that's kind of one of the darker ones. There's also a couple of other things that you kind of have to look into. I mean, there's a flashback sequence to where Lane and Beth are, parked in a car at a park, one night, and they're having sex in the car where his condom breaks. And what does that mean? Does that mean, did he get her pregnant? Did she have an abortion? We don't know. They don't really say, but it's kind of left hanging out there.
Yeah. I mean, in most movies in the 80s, if you were having sex without a condom, the girl ended up pregnant. So
yeah, I mean, look at Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
Yeah.
So, it's kind of another heavy thing that is not a big plot point. I mean, it's barely a plot point at all. It's just there, and something that really jumped out at me. And then, another thing is Curtis Armstrong, who plays, his best friend, Lane's best friend, who's trying to motivate him and coach him, to ski the K-12, is like a complete drug addict. He's in his 8th year of high school. And he's snorting anything he can find.
Yeah, I mean, these are parts of the reason that the movie doesn't hold up as well for me. Like,
that doesn't hold up.
Well, no, I mean, it feeds into. There's several things we've touched on, many of them already. But I'm sure get into.
Everyone's got a druggy friend though.
But like, it's just so over the top. Like, he's sitting on the top of the mountain. He's like, "This is pure snow," and it's like, dude, this is just not funny. Like, it's just
Curtis Armstrong sells it for me. I think he's hilarious.
Like, it's just not. It doesn't work for me. And maybe I've seen it too many times, or maybe it's just like I'm just not in the same headspace as I was in high school when I watched this and first adored it. But it's like a lot of those like silly things that I would have just been like totally fine with back in the day, I just kind of found them a little annoying this time around.
Oh, fair enough. I saw it as a product of, there's always, I mean, regardless of anyone's personal use of things, there's always someone who's doing it more, into more drugs and all of that. And like, it doesn't really affect his relationship with like Lane's relationship with him. I mean, like, he doesn't care, like,
they're
so he's another absurd character. Like, the street value of all the snow on the mountain.
Real snow.
Yeah. I just think it's the absurdity in general for whatever reason, like, just doesn't, I don't know. Like, it doesn't hit the same for me.
Well, that's the thing about this movie is you're either going to be like okay with this stuff or you're not, because it is very silly. I mean, to me, like for his storyline, it worked for me. I laughed at it. I didn't take it seriously, but I saw the note underneath it that this is a guy with a major problem who's can't get out of high school and is, probably already done all the drugs that he's now looking outside to normal things.
Snorting jello, snorting literal snow.
And what's with Curtis Armstrong playing characters who use their nose for things? So is that
famously as Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, which
right.
is probably the most offensive of the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I want to come
Porky's.
I don't want to cover that.
Put a pin in Revenge of the Nerds for a minute. I do want to come back to that because there's a way it relates to this movie. Revenge of the Nerds is like I don't even know how we could cover it because it's just, and everyone knows it. Like that's a movie that is just kind of unwatchable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was enjoyable from a youth mentality growing up with it, but now like seeing what is actually going on in that movie,
it's just grossly offensive and not it's just not appropriate things. It's just
well, what's gross is that at one point it was like that's like even that
people made that movie.
I know people made that movie. It was successful. It has like 4 sequels.
And
like it was what we call a franchise.
TV show, maybe.
I don't know if did it have a T. It may have.
No, I don't think so. I think just a bunch of shitty sequels.
An animated series.
Oh God.
Oh my God. I wouldn't doubt it.
On Adult Swim.
Yeah.
No, it was Saturday morning rotation.
Yeah, right. It's kind of surprising that didn't get a Saturday morning cartoon, but
yeah.
Could have.
Wow.
But what about the other women in the movie? Beth is kind of unfortunately a sort of a one-note character that she's portrayed as a shallow person who just goes for Stalin because he's the like stud. But you don't, the movie doesn't.
Are there any women in the movie that aren't kind of one-dimensional other than Monique?
No, I think there are women characters like the mother that I absolutely love.
But she's still super. I feel like she's only, like it's just one thing with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it. Monique's the only, dynamic character, and the rest are cartoons. Like most of the characters in this movie are cartoons. So,
right.
So for Lane's mom, played by Kim Darby, is that right?
Yeah.
And like Beth, I mean, I think like Beth is sort of like. It's not like she's like a villain though. Like, she just like she decides like she's not into Lane anymore and breaks it off like kind of clean. Right. So, and then it's not like she's too manipulative or anything. It almost seemed like she went to go be with Roy Stalin, but like she's like, she can kind of do whatever she wants, and even though he's sort of taking possession of her and singing to her in a little bit, I don't know. She seems like kind of like a normal person, but then
when you see those flashback scenes, it's like where they first meet each other at the park, and which is I think a great scene of like one of them touches their nose so the other thinks there's something on their nose, like who hasn't gone through that?
It's a great little scene. It's and really funny. So but you don't get so much, and then like again his obsession with her like kind of clouds it, so then like we kind of are supposed to not like her because she broke his heart, kind of, as the script demands it.
Yeah, and that being said, it's nothing about the performances of any of these actors. Like they do a great job. It's sort of the notes of the characters that we're talking about. So
they just don't have. They played the part they were given. Right.
We've got some kind of racial stereotypes happening in the movie. Just a couple. Like,
what do you mean?
With the oh, do tell.
I feel like I can't even say the characters' names because even the names of the characters to me seem right.
Well, so let's just say the two gentlemen who have the
Howard Cosell,
sort of, I guess, obsessed rivals of Lane, who only meet each other when they drive up to the same intersection, and they have this race, this back and forth car race. That one of those actors is from Karate Kid 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Yuji Okumaru.
Yeah.
Okumaru.
So those characters are supposed to be, I guess, I don't know if they're foreign exchange students or just, foreigners who've moved here who only learned English through watching and listening to Howard Cosell.
Yeah, The Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
Right.
So what does that say about them?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's not quite fair to like sort of put them in. But man, that Howard Cosell impression is really funny.
It's really good,
like,
and I think it's actually Rich Little who does the voiceover for that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not unheard of that people would migrate to the United States and would learn they'd learn the language watching television. Like that happens, you know?
Oh yeah.
I just think that, in the context of the movie, like it's a little, could be not considered sensitive,
Yeah.
and how the portrayal is kind of
and later at the end, when Lane has the final race with them, when he's fixed up his car, him and Monique have fixed up his car, and he just like kicks their ass. What are they doing? They're in the car eating Chinese food. It's just it's subtle, but it's just one of those things like, that could have in today's world would have been done differently.
Yeah.
And then you've got what are they, telephone repair men? One of which is played by Stephen Williams, who is the police captain from 21 Jump Street, and a great actor. He's on the X-Files and like tons of other shows and movies.
Right.
When Lane is attempting suicide by jumping off a bridge into like oncoming freeway traffic, they're like he decides not to do it, but his buddy Curtis Armstrong pats him on the back and knocks him off, and he falls into a garbage truck. And what do they say? Like, getting rid of a perfectly good white boy.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah,
away a perfectly good white boy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't come across so well in today's climate either.
Who is that supposed to? Who does that offend?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not sure. I kind of get it's a little weird, but
yeah,
I don't get is it offensive? Like,
because no, I read somewhere else that it's kind of not politically correct and insensitive, but like I guess I just don't know who that particular line.
Well, like maybe I think maybe that it's the only thing that they're going to comment on. The black characters has to be race related.
Yeah, maybe.
They couldn't have made some other joke. Like it had to be about, skin color.
I'm throwing away a perfectly good white boy. I don't know.
I think it's funny.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I am sure
Sorry.
it's not quite appropriate. It's good to note. You probably wouldn't write that joke today. But
I mean, look on there. I think part of what's out there in looking back at a lot of these movies that, especially, I don't know, it feels like especially like pre 90s stuff, is anything that is race related is going to have the spotlight put on it. And,
there's going to be extra scrutiny.
Right. And is this like the most offensive thing? Absolutely not. It does feel like a fairly minor thing, but it's going to get called out now.
Yeah. Well, and like the basketball team, is there any white people on the basketball team?
There are.
And all this coming from three white guys. So,
yeah.
Right.
But jocks are not portrayed very well.
They're like eating baby food. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah,
that's all they ate was.
And they kind of just grunt, like they're all just like they're just mindless jocks.
Well, so much of this is so autobiographical. Like this really comes from the mind and the heart of Savage Steve Holland, and this is stuff that he experienced in one way or another in high school. Many of us have, but clearly,
and this
like
is embellished for
yeah.
comedic reasons, right? But yeah, absolutely,
right. Like that's his view on jocks. I think we know, probably how he felt back then about them.
Yeah.
But all those things being said, I still find I really enjoy the movie. At the heart of it is, I'm always drawn. I'm a sucker for the John Cusack romantic comedy films, and some of which are more drama and some are more comedy.
I know Serendipity is one of your favorites. So
hey, I just watched that.
I know you did.
It was
again.
Yeah, that was tough, but and America's Sweethearts. That was.
I haven't seen that one, to be real.
There was some. I watched those like back to back a few months ago, and America's Sweethearts. There was a couple of things. Billy Crystal drives me nuts, so I think like that was the thing.
Him and Richard Dreyfuss hanging out together on your couch.
I used to love Billy Crystal, and personally, I don't have anything personal against him, but his style of comedy has just not aged for me. Like it's very old school style and just isn't funny anymore at all.
I've tried to rewatch City Slickers not too long ago, and yeah, it fell kind of flat.
It's kind of like certain Mel Brooks movies. Like that is a very particular.
Some of them are real hard to watch.
Some of them are really, really hard to watch. It's like, this is my note of comedy. This is what I do. And that when you do it that specifically, it doesn't always, I mean, even Seinfeld, there's a lot of stuff in rewatching some of those that just is mostly sexist and racist, but
yeah,
but some of it still works. Anyway, sidetracking, but I don't know. I think at the heart of the movie is the relationship side and the issues with Beth and the pivoting to Monique, and that's kind of what I'm drawn to, and I enjoy like the really absurd stuff in this movie. I think that's what makes it special, because it's so, we're talking about comparing them with the John Hughes movies, and this is just such a different take, and the animated sequences and the weird dream sequences that are totally silly, but give it a much different flavor.
There are certain elements to this. Like I do like the relationship between Cusack and Diane Franklin. Like I like that part. That to me in this latest viewing might have been kind of the part that I enjoyed the most. I do think that some of the absurd stuff just doesn't hold up for me as much. And I think just where I'm at, like I said, I was a theater kid. When I first saw this, like I was, kind of dark and brooding and similar to the, Lane character and mental, like where my mental state was. So like, I could relate to it a lot more. And I'm less there now as I've gotten older and I've seen this movie so many times. So I just don't relate to it as much. It doesn't hit as much as it used to. I still enjoy it. I like some of the absurdity. I like the different platforms that Savage Steve Holland uses, like I like that he incorporates the animation. I like that Lane interacts with his animations. Yeah. I think that those parts are really fun. The stop motion stuff is great. I like that a lot.
It reminded me of, what was it, the California Raisins?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Like could have actually been done by the same house, that did the stop motion, like very similar styles. So, I mean, I like a lot of it, but when I was younger, this was like one of my favorite movies. And it just like, after watching it recently, like it just certainly, like I noticeably felt less attached to it.
Sure.
And I was like, this just doesn't, still enjoyed it. Still would recommend people watch it. but it's not. Yeah, it just
doesn't speak to you anymore.
Not in the same way. No.
Yeah.
Well, like, there's still other running gags and absurd elements. The paper boy needing that $2.
Yeah. Let's get
that
into
one.
that.
That's the one. See, like that's the one. When you mention this to people, I feel like that's the one that always $2. Like that's
I want my $2.
Yeah.
You got that. You got his. Oh geez.
The brother, his brother,
yes,
like
his
that
brother,
entire storyline.
His little brother is like
who never speaks.
Well, hold on. Before you the I want my $2 thing is, I think that's brilliant. And the way that joke, like that kid, he's a paper boy obsessed with getting his pay for like a month's worth of newspaper deliveries. And he just keeps coming back, and he's like so serious, and where he shows up, like it becomes these action chase sequences, and him getting the way he gets rid of him, Lane gets rid of the paper boy is so hilarious. Like he goes inside a car wash and he like washes away, and then he's chasing him, like the big ski chase at the end where he's chasing him down, and then gets thrown, like Stalin ends up knocking him off the mountain, and he goes pummeling off the side of the mountain, and then quickly you see like he's okay, and then the last shot of the movie is, they have that beautiful shot at Dodger Stadium where Lane and Monique are kissing on sitting on the hood of his car, and you see as it like the helicopter shot moves back, you see him riding his bike at full speed, like across Dodger Stadium at them. I love that gag. But
big fan. I think that resonates through the decades. Everyone loves that one.
The younger brother, who has no dialogue in the entire movie, is masterminding this whole plan of building a rocket ship. and what was it? How to attract like sleazy girls or something,
trashy
girl,
something like that. And so like he has like a legitimate laser gun that he shoots and all that. So like Lane just doesn't understand his little brother at all, like and his little brother's he's got 3 like trashy women in his bedroom, and he's entertaining them, and the door closes, and then he's just like, well, okay, like there's nothing Lane can do.
Like
he builds this rocket. He builds this rocket out of like coupons that he clips out of cereal boxes. Like it's bananas.
Yeah. And then the very like during the credit sequence, we see the rocket taking off from the house and going into outer space.
Straight up space shuttle, like from NASA.
Yeah. But like everything inside the Meyer house is bananas and bizarre. And there are 4 people who live in that house who seem to know nothing about each other. And have all these quirks. I love the parents, both of them. David Ogden Stiers, who was on MASH for a really long time, another great actor, is great. And there's so many subtle things about his character. He, in the first scene that we see him, where he's got his own battle with the paperboy, he's coming out in like a woman's, nightgown, and there's no comment on it. He's just wearing it. And then later you see him run out again, and he's got these big pink, looks like women's slippers. Again, no, like it just is something that's there. Like
it's just quick. He had to get out there quick.
Yeah.
Whatever he could find.
Or he was already wearing them,
Yeah.
And then his relationship, him trying to bond with Lane.
Yeah, right. He was like using teen speak, right? Like
he's got books on,
like trying to use slang. It's great.
Yeah. You're really burning me up. Like, what did he say?
And then like his mom, as Lane's mother, Kim Darby, is like just a terrible cook. Like, doesn't know how to cook.
Everything's like green. Everything she cooks is like green looking,
slimy, and gets up and walks off the table.
And at one point, there's just like tentacles in a pot or whatever. Like it's just, it's a wacky household.
Well, clearly, like she's, I don't know, there's something up with her. Like there's some mental health issues or what. But that, and the fact that they all, each of them, like, acknowledge these weird things but just move on.
Yeah.
Like the slimy baked green bacon that she boiled,
right?
Like they just look at it and keep going with their conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I think like part of it is like that's that endless commentary of like parents are clueless, right? Like, so this is just heightening it to such a level of that like, and you just accept it, like, okay, like they're just clueless about everything.
Yeah.
And then the only other running gag, well, there's probably more too, but after Beth breaks up with Lane, like all these men, like these adult men, are like getting want to ask his permission to date her.
Yeah,
like the school teacher, Vincent Schiavelli.
Yep.
Yeah.
Taylor Negron, the mailman. I love that. Like, he's dropping the mail as he's going through people's mail.
Yeah, he's opening it,
and then he asks Lane if he can ask her out. Lane shuts the door, and you hear him still talking out on the front. It's great. I know all of those things, like everything we just said, are reasons why I love this movie. All these wacky characters. I think they're still funny to me.
There's a charm to it. So yeah, I get how it doesn't hit the same. But yeah, it's like, so it makes it like less of a must watch again kind of thing. But I think if you see it at the right time, it's just one of those movies that are now just programmed, like it's gonna hit some warm spots in your brain if you watch it again, depending on your your level of nostalgia or tolerance for some of the riskier choices.
Yeah
I
mean, I don't think it's a movie I'll go out of my way to like show my kids at any point, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
let them learn about Better Off Dead on these streets.
Yeah,
on the streets.
But it definitely served a purpose at a time in my life, and it was significant.
Yeah. I want to come back to what we were talking about, Revenge of the Nerds.
So when did that come out?
84.
Oh,
so right before this. So in that movie, the nerds and what they're doing and what they end up doing is they're portrayed as heroes. Here you've got Ricky, who would definitely have been one of the nerds, who is portrayed as one of your villains, and in a lot of ways kind of the true villain of the movie, because when who's the final villain of the movie?
Final battle is
Lane versus Ricky.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's just a different spin on it here. That he's doing the same thing that the nerds in Revenge of the Nerds are doing, but it's definitely portrayed as, I mean, they're not saying what he's doing is okay.
Yeah. Or is Lane Ricky's Stalin?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
I mean, no.
Hard to,
no. But because you can't justify that relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what him and his mom have done to bring Monique over, and implied there's no redemption from that.
Right.
So he can't be. But in an alternate universe where that didn't happen and it wasn't as horribly awkward, maybe.
Yeah. And ultimately, after Lane defeats him, there's another woman who is quote unquote nerd woman who is on the slopes of the K-12 who falls in love with him, and he seems like he dumps his mom for this girl, and
right.
Maybe there's hope for Ricky after that.
I hope for good things for Ricky.
We all hope for.
I hope he turned it around.
Yeah. So where does this guy? First of all, are you guys fans of the John Cusack relationship movie in a general sense?
In a general sense,
yeah. Like
I don't know.
we've got, what do we have? We have The Sure Thing. We've got Better Off Dead. We've got Say Anything. We've got, I guess, Gross Point Blank, which we covered here. You can listen to in the archives at reconcinimation.com. We've got High Fidelity, and then your later ones, America's Sweethearts and Serendipity, and he does still, was it Must Love Dogs? Was that one with Diane Lane?
Yep.
Are you guys fans of any of those? Any of those speak to you more than the others?
Gross Point Blank is probably my favorite of the ones that you just listed off. Yeah. But Say Anything was probably one of the most popular romantic. I don't know.
It's got an iconic shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the like staples of the time frame. But I was never a huge fan of Say Anything. But Gross Point Blank, I like a lot. I think that's great.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know, not a huge fan of the other stuff, but I don't know, some, you know, those early ones, they came out when I was a child, so I wasn't like, I wasn't watching. I wasn't going to watch Say Anything until later.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Maybe it's because I got into those in probably mid-college. I got into the Cusack stuff. That was when I saw Say Anything for the first time. That's when High Fidelity came out. I loved Grosse Pointe Blank, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of a lot of his. You know, I'm not into like the later Cusack, you know, who's doing the horror movies and like action movies and low budget things.
I like that he does all sorts of stuff, though. I don't know.
I mean, being John Malkovich was great, but I guess that's not really. I mean, is that later? That's old now.
Well, I mean, we talked about that last year, and that's might be the last great Cusack performance. I mean, I don't know. He's done. There are some movies I haven't seen that supposedly he's really, really great in, but
I like Hot Tub Time Machine. I'm not gonna lie.
And then there's that. Yeah.
I think he did great in that.
I think that one's
solid.
I don't know if there's a movie with John Cusack, who's a heartbroken John Cusack is walking through the rain, depressed. Like, I'm going to see that movie. That's a staple. That's a John Cusack staple.
That's good. You should do that.
So I'm in for that, but and then, you know, like we mentioned, this part of the movie does take place at Christmas. I think it's unclear what the whole like length of time that the movie takes place in, but not too terribly long. I mean, it's all contained within the winter season, so maybe like November to January, maybe
something like that. I mean, yeah, over a course of months.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
But you know, it's got to work in Christmas. I mean, it's you know, Christmas could really show up in every movie. Even Star Wars has Christmas.
That's true.
My kids were arguing with me earlier about what like for TV shows, if they have a Christmas episode, does that make it a Christmas show? And I said, yeah, I guess it does. So if
what
if Christmas appears in your movie or show, that just puts it in, it's about Christmas.
A whole show.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. No.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
One other thing that I really love about this movie is the soundtrack.
What do we got on this?
It's mostly E.G. or Elizabeth Daily. Great songs that fit the vibe of this movie really, really well.
There's a whole song called Better Off Dead, right?
Better Off Dead. Yep. That might be what we go out with on the on this episode here. You'll have to keep listening to find out. There's "Like to Get You Know You Well" by Howard Jones. That's a great song. There's of course there's the score by Rupert Hine, who does a number of tracks, and some other songs. There's Foxy Ladies in here, but that's and some Christmas music by the Carpenters and Darlene Love, and just a good overall soundtrack. You can't find a complete soundtrack out there for this. It's got about half the songs on it, but it's at least something. So, but those are real enjoyable. I love those. So, just my thoughts. Should we talk a little BO, a little box office glory, and see how the movie did financially?
Yeah.
All right. So the movie filmed in December 1984 in and around LA. It's actually the scene where he's on the bridge ready to commit suicide is actually on my route home from Recon Cinema Studios. So I drive past that or underneath that pretty much every day. So but a lot of the car chases was shot in the Sierra Madre area. The Myers house is in Glendale. The
car wash scene is right over off San Fernando in McCambridge Park.
That's correct.
That's my old car wash.
Yeah.
That's where I used to go.
You can see McCambridge too. Like when
you can see where the Carl's Jr. is. It's not Carl's Jr., but
whatever it was. Yeah,
whatever it was. Yep, absolutely. I was like, hey, that's my part. What?
Yep. It's funny when you can start noticing all that.
A lot of this movie looked awfully familiar.
Yeah. And actually a lot of these locations is similar to where they shot Grosse Pointe Blank. So there you go. The restaurant, the burger restaurant, is in the valley. That's the building's still there. It's closed down. It's just a vacant building now, but you can, if you know what to look for, like you can tell, like that's it right there.
Yeah.
It opened up August 23rd, 1985 in limited release. And this was like 15 theaters. Teen Wolf came out that weekend and was the dominant movie.
Yeah.
Better Off Dead got about $56,000. And then it didn't open wide until October 11th, 1985, which was the same weekend that two amazing films were the new releases that weekend: Silver Bullet and Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. One of those you can hear in our archives at www.reconciliation.com. That's Silver Bullet. The other we'll definitely be covering at some point down the road.
Plus, we've already covered Teen Wolf.
And Teen Wolf, yeah.
We've done a lot of 85 shit.
It's a big year. It's a huge year.
It's a big year. Yeah.
And a lot more to go that year, too. But so it opened up when it moved wide. It bumped all the way up to number 7. So for a movie that had been out for a month and a half already, that's pretty good. It only does 2.8 million that weekend. It ends up with 10.2 million domestically. It was I'm not sure what the total budget was. I can't imagine it was that huge. So I feel I
read something. The budget was like $3 million.
Yeah. So this was I wouldn't say it was a hit, but they made their money back for sure.
Yeah. You triple your money back.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So one of those.
But I think the thing is they were hoping that it would make money like Fast Times at Ridgemont High type money, right?
Right.
And that's what it did not do. And so they considered it kind of, even though it did earn its money back and some, it didn't quite hit the numbers they were hoping for.
Yeah. It didn't catch fire. That's for sure. I mean, they sort of got, they got by with it, but it wasn't the hit that they wanted.
Yeah. Well, and so leading up to its release though, like they were previewing it and it was getting great numbers in the previews. So it was doing so well at the previews that they went ahead and just kind of greenlit his second movie, One Crazy Summer. And that was already going by the time they were releasing this. So
yeah, which sort of leads into what ended up happening between Cusack and Savage Steve Holland, that this movie is released when I think they're in production already on One Crazy Summer, and Cusack was very upset at the final film, was didn't like how he was portrayed, didn't like how the film turned out, felt like he was lied to and misled, and it wasn't the movie that he was making, and ended up no longer speaking to Steve Holland, and they went through almost the entire production of that movie where he's the lead, with the director and the lead actor not speaking to each other. And I don't know if they've ever spoken since then.
I don't know. Strange. I did hear that, and then I heard more recently that Cusack is kind of calmed down a bit on his dislike of Better Off Dead, and he appreciates it now a little more than he did back then. But it kind of blows my mind that he had such a negative reaction to this movie, because I feel like this movie is kind of, I don't know, for a long time, like it was kind of the cult movie that like if you'd seen Better Off Dead, like you were cool,
right.
Cool. Like if you were able to find it and you were able to watch it and you knew about it, like you were cool. And so like there was this whole cult, like insiders group of people who had seen this movie, and like John Cusack was like the leader of that. And I think like it helped perpetuate his career in such a way that like he still is like has receipts for what he's doing now, and so it kind of blows my mind that he has that opinion.
I don't know, like when he read the script, I've never read the script for this movie, but I can't imagine that the script was so wildly different from what the finished product was. I know that does happen where it changes in the editing room and tones change. The director uses different takes. Maybe that happened here, but I mean, plot wise, like it's pretty clear what's going on in this movie. So, well, I mean, animation sequences don't just pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a cafeteria yelling at a blank sheet of paper. You know something's going to be on there.
When you're shooting a scene with you as a crazy maniac Dr. Frankenstein dream sequence, fantasy sequence, like what did you think that was? I'm not sure what we'll have to ask him.
Well, it is like he's involved in all this stuff. He's in the scenes with all these crazy things. Like what does he think? And it's not, and even still, like even if he was sort of confused about what the final product was supposed to be, it's like, does he feel like humiliated or something, like that he's in this, like that people are laughing at it? I mean, was it supposed to be more of a serious take? I mean, maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like if that was his position of, to be angry about it, obviously he had a whole different idea, but I don't know. It's on the page. There's just stuff you couldn't ignore, the tentacles or the moving food or
I mean,
there's just so much stuff in the movie that's completely wacky.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So, we'll have to cover One Crazy Summer, because that is, I really like that movie. I don't love it as much as I love Better Off Dead, but it's got a bit of a different tone. You have more of a female lead with Demi Moore.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
I liked One Crazy Summer more than Better Off Dead.
Yeah, for a long time that was
long time.
I preferred One Crazy Summer.
Yeah. So it was also the one that I saw first. So
and that might be it. Like I saw One Crazy Summer for the first time as an adult and did not like it at all. I rewatched it recently and liked it a lot more. But I still don't. I didn't have that love for it. But I'm an 80-year-old guy watching it for like the second time. So
right.
I don't know. It's got Bobcat in it.
It does. Sure does.
Bobcat. And it has Curtis Armstrong too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you got that. And
Curtis Armstrong is like,
and Billy Zabka
and Rich Little.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
What a
everybody.
But overall, for Better Off Dead, I appreciate it for taking like the cliche kind of 80s movie and spinning it a little bit and trying to do something different. And I just appreciate it for that it tried to be different and hit some of the same subjects and from a different angle.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's why it works. It has its own mark on the subject matter.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely got its own stamp. It's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's been maybe there has, but an 80s movie or teen movie that's as bizarre as this one is. I can't think of any. They kind of traditionally do that straightforward, storylines.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are strange ones. I don't know if they're intentionally strange, but
yeah,
they probably are. But I mean, it takes a certain level of charm and
right. And you got to be good at strange
people.
For it to,
because you can't go too big, and you go too little, then it doesn't hit. Like, who knows? I'm sure there's some lovely little movies out there.
And this was so personal to Savage Steve Holland that I think that's a lot of it too. That
right.
It wasn't just like some guy coming and directing or, directing somebody else's script of this. If somebody else had directed this script that he wrote, it would have been an entirely different portrayal. Probably would have been pretty boring and would have just been like, added to the pile of the other 80s teen movies of the day.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be like element of heart here, that you can kind of feel, like you mentioned earlier, it all seems rooted in real experience, things that people can relate to experience wise, even though it's, spackled together with all these strange different elements and all this wackiness. It's, like at the heart of it, it's, there are things that everybody can kind of be like, oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's, we spoke about it. It's a lot of heavy themes in here taken with a very light comedic look on it, but they are there. And I don't know. I think it's one I always recommend it. This is on my movie list. I think at least for the creativity of what he's trying to do and how he's trying to do this subject differently, a commonly covered subject so differently. And on top of that, you get a little Christmas.
That's right.
Well, and it's so our last film we did was Lethal Weapon, which also, we didn't really touch on it in the episode much, that Mel Gibson's character is suicidal. He's a psychopath. He's crazy. They keep using all these like loaded words for that he may be suicidal because he's obviously extremely depressed or in grieving, and in acting in dangerous situations. And it's this idea of this man who's going through mental anguish is crazy or is a psychopath or psychotic, whatever they say, and all that. And it's sort of resolved that once he finds family, he doesn't have that need to want to end his life. And this movie, same thing, like a character's like he's considering ways to end his life, attempts it like specifically once, and if he didn't, if he didn't pass out and hit the gear shift, he would have died in the car. But like he was going to hang himself, and he sort of took it back, and then he was going to light himself on fire, but then he couldn't because Ricky's mom drank the primer or whatever.
Yeah, and she blew
herself up, and he's like,
sorry about your mom, Ricky.
Yeah, sorry your mom exploded or whatever. But like this kind of heavy shit. And I think maybe
I have to question, how happy could he have been even before?
Probably not much, right? So Beth
broke up with him, right? I mean, he's obsessed with her. She obviously doesn't think the same.
Yeah, I mean, she's probably been unhappy with him for however long.
But like, but whatever he's going through, it's not necessarily losing Beth that was creating this, but it is a catalyst for him,
Absolutely.
So because he thought he built his life around her, and then that ended. So he was sort of grieving that. So there's this like, there's something to it in these two movies that we saw where a character is seriously considering ending their own life, and one played for laughs, and then one sort of played for writing him off, like that you'd have to be crazy to kill yourself. All right, not like, oh, you're in pain, what can we do, you're crazy. I guess they call him Riggs crazy because of he potentially puts other cops in danger and stuff. But so I mean, there are, for anyone that would be considering ending any self-harm or ending their own life, there are resources out there. National Suicide Prevention Hotlines out there. Suicide.org can give you resources too to reach out. And
this can be a tough time of year for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the holidays.
Yeah.
And so you can get to a level of despair where where pain it seems too much. Maybe even watching movies like this actually might make it relatable in a sense of like some other people go through this pain as well.
Yeah.
So, and there are resources, and if you can talk to people, please do. Reach out to anybody.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just want to make sure, because we didn't really talk about that psycho talk on the last episode, and for touching on the theme again in sort of a different way, it should be addressed. And anyway, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Well, and we're gonna pivot after these two movies where we've got some dark undertones here. Mm-hmm. We're gonna pivot to something. I'm not gonna say what it is. I won't spoil it, but I'm gonna tease it. That it's a classic comedy. It's
another movie about family,
major holiday flavor, and we're working on having a special guest join us. We're still working on the contracts. Our teams are in talks, but hopefully we'll have that locked in the next few days, and it's going to be a really, really fun episode, and that's going to be our number one Christmas movie of this year.
Excellent. I can't wait.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to get much more fun than maybe the last couple of episodes. So
some fun on both of these.
We did. Yes. Yeah, totally.
They're fun.
I ended this episode on a downer of a note.
Well, no, but I think
not a downer, but a serious note.
No, it's important.
It's important to take that. I think what you said was right. Like although we're talking movies. Depression's real. These kind of thoughts are real, and like John mentioned too, that around this time of year it gets really tough, and so I think it makes a lot of sense to remind people that there are people out there that they can talk to and who have gone through similar things and can help you.
Yeah.
These movies not nearly as somber as the tone of that kind of outreach, but it's important that we say it. So I'm glad you guys did.
And if you're listening out there and you ever just need somebody to talk to, you can always reach out to us through our social medias. We're Reconcinimation Podcast on Facebook, Instagram.
Why you gotta make it all corporate and weird, John? Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm just trying to wrap the show up now.
Nice job, Stalin.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, now I can't even get through it.
If you're listening, you know where to find us. We'll be there again. Come check it out.
All right. We're going to check us out on our social medias. We're Reconcinimation Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can check out our archives at reconcinimation.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're going to, as we're wrapping up, we're just going to say a quick thank you and promo for some of our friends. We've got Scored to Death, which is a look at some of horror's greatest composers by our friend J. Blake Teixeira. Laser Graves, of course, by E.K. Wimmer, who does our theme music. And thank you to our friend Curtis Moore for the poster, as usual. By the way, one more thing about Better Off Dead. The poster. It's a Drew Struzan poster, one of my all-time favorites. There's a few variants of it, but a great, fantastic poster. Amazing drawing by Mr. Struzan. So, but comparable to the work that Curtis Moore does.
Very much so.
Okay, guys. So, yeah, we'll see you next time for our very special holiday episode of Reconcinimation.
Take care.
I want my $2. $2.
Johnny.
4 weeks. 20 papers, that's $2 plus tip.
Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry.
Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
Well, it's funny. See, my mom had to leave early to take my brother to school and my dad to work because...
$2. Cash.